Welcome to the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast. I'm your host, Forrest Kelly. From the seed to the glass, wine has a past. Our aim at the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast is to look for adventure at wineries around the globe. After all, great minds think alike. Let's start the adventure. Our featured winery is... In part one of our conversation with Philippe of Wollersheim Winery, we learned the winery had been purchased in 1972 and had been struggling until Philippe and his father-in-law came upon an idea.
In 1988, I created a wine called Prairie Fumé, which is made of Céval Blanc grape, a French-American hybrid from New York State. We used to grow Céval here in Wisconsin, but we made a different style of wine with it. So we bought grapes from New York State and came up with a totally different wine, a Pinot Grigio style, 30 years ahead of of the fashionable Pinot Grigio. We stopped fermentation. That was the first time we did that way back in 87 and 88. So natural sweetness, no sugar added, light, crisp, 10% of alcohol, high acid. And the first year we released that wine, it got 4 gold medals, and it hit the news.
When you first tasted it, did you know that hey, I've got something here?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it was intentionally made. It wasn't like, oh man, by accident it tastes great. The intention was, and I can picture myself in 1988 right next to the tank, and my goal was to capture the aromatics of fermentation in a bottle. So it just like, okay, how do I do that? How can I freeze that fragrance?
Because up to this point, your whole background and your whole family had let it do its thing and complete the fermentation process, but you wanted to stop it.
Exactly, absolutely. Yeah, I'm used to dry reds, Beaujolais, fresh, fruity, light, but bold and dry. And here, working this white Céval Blanc, it was perfume, it was aromatic, it was citrus, it was orange, it was so awesome. And so I wanted to capture that. That was my ultimate goal. So with crushing with cold temperature, knocking the yeast out, and sulfite, killing the yeast, then it was a stable white wine, a German style, let's call it that way, without the thickness of a German white. Not all out thick. This one was more Italian Pinot Grigio, crisp, light, fresh, fruity, and it was a big hit.
So when you were at that moment, when you were tasting it, was there anybody else around, or did you just run off and say, you got to taste this, you got to check it out? What?
Well, my father-in-law, we were working closely together. We developed that concept together. But, it was, I knew it was, deep down, we had that secret excitement. It's one competition, a gold medal, second competition, another gold medal, third competition, and we never had a successful wine like this ever. The word got around in Michigan, the word got around in Illinois, the word got around in New York State, and Dallas Morning News wrote a nice article about it because we had gotten a gold medal. Dan Berger in California has awarded a lot of gold medal to that wine. So it created its own little interest, and now this wine is 400,000 bottles, and we run out of it every year.
Wow! And your wife probably looked at you and said, "Finally, I've got something I can market now."
Exactly, and it's interesting development in life, because without that wine, we really wondered if we were not going to go bankrupt. It was financially it could not really support 2 families and kids, and we were just wondering. And then suddenly it was just like a breath of fresh air. It's just like, wow,
Oh, that story gave me goosebumps. It's Prairie, F-U-M-E, and what are you doing, Philippe? It's only $10 a bottle.
I know, and it's funny because I was just telling, yesterday we had a meeting with an apple orchard. They were interested by how we do our apple brandy at the distillery and so on. And, that wine, I'm sure we could even sell more if it was $12 or $13 or $14 a bottle. But, we have a great distribution only in Wisconsin, actually, and it's a $10 price point, and it sells well. And coming from Beaujolais, if I can make it for $10 and it sells and we make money, I'm happy with it. I'm not a big fan of $50, $60, $80, $100 bottle that so few people can afford.
In part 3, we learn about the distillery and the bistro at Wollersheim Winery. Thank you for listening. I'm Forrest Kelly. This episode of the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast was produced by iHizzle. If you like the show, please tell your friends and pets and subscribe. Until next time, pour the wine and ponder your next adventure.